All right, welcome back sa podcast, Conversations on Philippine History, Politics, and Society. I am Lee Candelaria.
I am Vecal Porha.
At ako si Joselito Ebro.
Nagpapatuloy ang ating season, Bagay-Bagay, Objects of Philippine Life, where we are looking at everyday objects, their history, and how they have been used throughout the lives of Filipinos. Today, we're journeying south to explore an artistic tradition that has adorned Mindanao for centuries.
Yes, something that you'll find carved into the Torogan houses of royalty, gleaming on brass vessels, and woven into the very fabric of Muslim Mindanao identity.
At ito nga ay yung okir o ukil. Mahalagang motif ito sa Muslim Mindanao. At ito nga yung mga geometric or curvilinear design patterns na flowing. So natural at intricate design pattern ang mga ito.
And that flowing quality is exactly what makes okir so distinctive. While these intricate patterns are found among various groups in Mindanao, the Maguindanaon call it okil, and some southern indigenous peoples have their own variations. Yung okir, ito yung pinaka-associated sa Maranao people sa Lanao.
Yeah, at what's really fascinating for me here is that itong okir, it exists at this intersection of the indigenous and the Islamic, the ancient and the contemporary. It survived colonization, war, and most recently, yung Marawi siege noong 2017. And it continues to evolve while maintaining its sacred essence.
At hindi lang siya for decoration, no? At sa Gen Z term nga, aesthetic. Hindi lang ganun.
Yes,
So, every spiral, every leaf pattern, every naga o yung serpent motif carries meaning. Kumbaga, it's a philosophy. A worldview rendered in wood, carved in brass, woven in textile, at marami pang iba.
So ngayon, we will trace these sacred patterns from pre-Islamic Mindanao to their role in the ongoing Marawi rehabilitation. So let's explore the art that refuses to be silenced.
Siguro just for context, wala naman sa atin talaga dito yung Muslim, But I personally do studies on peace building in Mindanao, and I have currently ongoing research in Marawi, and dun talaga yung exposure ko sa okir as a design pattern. Pero para maunawaan natin itong okir, yung kasaysayan nito, we need to travel back in time. Travel back in pre-Islamic Mindanao, specifically the 6th century, when these decorative carving traditions first emerged.
And archaeological evidence shows that okir evolved from the earlier okil or okil-okil na mga decorative carving, yung traditional decorative carving of the seafaring Sama Bajau people. And these master carvers created elaborate decorations on ritual animistic objects. So grave markers na gawa sa kahoy or sa stone at sa kanilang mga distinctive houseboats.
Magandang balikan din yung etymology nung word itself kasi interesting and fascinating. It comes from an old Malayan word meaning carve. Different groups pronounce it differently. Okir for Maranao, okil for Maguindanaon, and ukil for Sama Bajau. All variations of the same ancient practice.
Yeah, and sa atin personally, I'm Tagalog, meron tayong ukit. So, it's kind of related, Carving, ukit. So, it really is part of a tradition, shared din naman. And yun nga, nakikita natin siya na patterns across Muslim Mindanao and even among some indigenous groups in the South. I think yung Maranao talaga, yung pinaka-elaborate at sophisticated yung system ng okir. Kasi yung okir nila became so distinctive that experts can identify specifically Maranao work from other traditions, kumbaga. Distinctive.
Oo, kasi yung pre-Islamic designs, parang meron siyang animistic na element or very strong siya dyan. Like for example, the naga, the serpent or dragon motif rendered in distinctive S-shaped curves ay hindi lang decoration, hindi lang siya aesthetic, 'di ba? Meron din siyang spiritual aspect. It was seen as some kind of a spiritual protection. Maranaos believed that carving naga on Torogan house beams would drive away evil spirits.
Then there's Pako, the fern spiral representing natural growth and tropical forest environment surrounding Lake Lanao. And the Todi, a fern leaf with spiral that symbolizes the Katuray tree and natural vitality. These weren't random choices, no? Bawat element connects to a natural world and spiritual beliefs of the pre-Islamic Mindanao.
What's remarkable is kung paano na yung pagdating ng Islam ng 14th century transformed but didn't erase these traditions, no? Sa Islam kasi may tinatawag na aniconism, yung bawal or pagbabawal sa figurative representation, no? You cannot render things in nature in other forms, kumbaga. So, yung tradition na yun could have killed Okir kasi Okir is obviously based on the naga, the serpent, and the frog. So, natural objects, kumbaga. But what happened is that it triggered this incredible artistic evolution.
Exactly. Sobrang galing yan. So, Maranao artists, kailangan nilang i-reimagine yung traditional motifs, yung mga naga. Halimbawa, hindi siya nag-disappear. Parang ginawa lang siyang stylized. It became like an abstracted pattern. Pero kung alam mo yung konteksto, makikita mo na kung saan siya nanggaling. It is rooted from a longer history of design. Tapos yung sari manok, for example, yung legendary bird, it was actually transformed from a literal representation into flowing geometric interpretations na pasok dun sa religious requirements habang nandoon pa rin yung cultural meanings.
So, yung adaptation ito also created the two tradition system that we see today. Okir Adato, the male Okir featuring predominantly curvilinear design, and Okir Abay, a female Okir with predominantly rectilinear patterns. So may gender-based division na makikita, reflecting Islamic social organization while keeping or maintaining pre-existing artistic practice.
Interesting no na sa Okir Adato sa Okir Abay, yung Adato, yung male, yung curvilinear, tapos yung female, yung rectilinear, no?
Oo nga, no?
Interesting yan for me. Going back lang sa nabagtani kayo about aniconism, no? The idea of Islamic aniconism is you cannot render religious iconography, you cannot visualize it in other forms. Yun yung point. Pero it also applies, I think, to other objects of everyday life. But going back to our discussion, itong geometrical patterns, I think it indicates this kind of mathematical precision that developed, no, throughout this process of hey, hindi tayo pwede mag-render ng actual nature objects. So, dapat it can be more abstract. So, they use different patterns. And Maranao Okir became so stylized and rule-bound that experts, yun nga, they can not only identify if it's Maranao work, but they can also specify kung anong area around Lake Lanao galing yung ganitong tradisyon ng pag-ukir o pag-ukit, no? Or yung pag-weave gamit yung okir motifs. So, kumbaga, nagkaroon ng fingerprint yung artists around Lake Lanao based dun sa kanilang design na ginagawa.
Tapos yung knowledge or yung practice, yung skill was preserved through the Panday system. Ito ay isang sophisticated apprenticeship structure. So yung mga bata, started learning baul carving as young as like 12, 11 years old. So talagang literal that they grew up amidst the creation of this art.
Ayun. So may tradition din, no? Or may practice. Hindi lang siya technical. So the training wasn't just technical according to Nagasura Madales documentation. So nag-aral nitong practice. So apprentices would kill a chicken and smear blood on their carving tools. then later conclude with a communal feast. So may tradition, and the spiritual and communal aspects were as important as the craft itself.
Ayun nga I visited Marawi a few times, and meron talaga silang sinasabi na may isang town talaga na kumbaga very focused on arts. Ito yung Tugaya. So itong Tugaya sa Lanao del Sur is recognized as a center of Maranao craftsmanship. They developed specialized expertise. Marami sa mga tao dito, sa mga artisans dito ay into wood carving, while yung iba naman, ang focus nila is brass work using lost wax casting techniques that actually arrived with seafaring Malay ancestors in around the 8th century. At yung iba naman, ang focus nila ay textile weaving, yung ang paghahabi ng langkit, no, para sa mga malong. This created this interdependent communities of artisans.
And dahil yung knowledge, kumbaga, ng mga ancestors natin ay hindi sobrang compartmentalized. Kumbaga, magkakaugnay sila. Therefore, yung mga panday, itong mga carvers, they weren't just craftsmen. Kumbaga, custodian din sila ng isang kahit ng kaalaman or ng knowledge, which we can describe as sacred or spiritual. So, the Torogan houses that they decorated with elaborate panyolong beams became symbols of political power for the Dato class. So, talagang nagtatawid-tawid siya, no? So, without the Panday, therefore, who's making these symbolic signals, hindi mo pwedeng i-maintain yung social hierarchies sa mga lipunang ito.
So, yung Okir, it's not just an art form. It's a complete cultural system. So the visual language of Okir communicated status, protected against spiritual threats, connected communities to their environment, and maintained continuity with pre-Islamic traditions while embracing Islamic principles.
The Spanish colonial period, which transformed so much of the Philippines, had a paradoxical effect on Okir. Kasi while Spain colonized most of the archipelago from 1521 hanggang 1898, Mindanao's successful resistance inadvertently preserved Okir traditions through isolation.
So Spanish forces remained, as historical records would mention, and I quote, restricted to a handful of coastal garrison or forts, end quote. They launched occasional punitive expeditions into the interior, but by 1663, Mindanao became devoid of Spanish soldiers when forces withdrew to defend Manila against Chinese threats.
And Spanish documents reveal their hostility toward Islamic arts. Ang tingin nila sa Okir carvings ay pagan, no? So they launched military and spiritual campaigns against the Maranao beginning in 1639. But continuous moral resistance rendered these suppression attempts ineffective.
Yes, and we can say that the isolation allowed Okir to develop independent of the colonial context that are happening elsewhere. So it continued to evolve within Islamic and Mindanaoan parameters. So compare this to other Philippine regions kung saan naging malalim yung Spanish influence, and that same influence transformed or eliminated indigenous art entirely.
And starting in 1898, sa pagpasok ng mga Americans, we see this systematic documentation of Okir art. Pero syempre, with challenges. Well, dun muna tayo sa opportunities, no? Faye Cooper Cole from Field Museum of Natural History conducted extensive field work. So that actually extends also yung memory nitong tradition na ito. However, they collected 5,000 objects. So ibig sabihin, uprooted from their areas.
Si Dean Worster, Secretary of Interior for the U.S. Insular Government, created an archive nga din of over 15,000 photographs documenting Muslim Filipino homelands. His photographer, Charles Martin, captured traditional arts in unprecedented detail. But this documentation, of course, came with a price. Early commercialization attempts as Americans recognized the economic potential of the craftsmanship.
Saka kasi yung ganyang mga commercial development na ginawa sa Mindanao, parang way nila yan to colonize also or to pacify. Like, turuan natin sila how we do or how we sell and how we consume actually. Para mapacify daw yung Mindanao. So pagdating nung nangyari yung digmaan, yung Second World War, iba namang krisis yung hinarap ng tradisyong ito kasi syempre kapag gera, 'di ba? Meron kang brass shortages, 'di ba? Kasi nire-requisition ng military, 'di ba? Yung mga bakal, yung mga brass for artilleries and stuff. So because of that, traditional metalworking became nearly impossible to sustain.
Pero during the war, Maranaos of Lake Lanao, according to historical accounts, effectively won their war of resistance against Japanese forces. The Maranao Militia Force even captured strategic coastal towns like Malabang in April 1945.
At yun nga, despite all the material shortages and infrastructure destruction and, more than 1 million Filipino deaths, cities reduced to rubble, nagpatuloy pa rin tong strong traditional apprenticeship system. Napatuloy pa rin yung pag-transfer ng essential techniques through oral tradition, and community-based knowledge transmission persisted even during the post-war era and enabled the revival of the tradition.
Tapos merong crucial turning point na nangyari at iyon ay walang iba kundi yung establishment ng MSU or Mindanao State University on September 1, 1961. Created as a social laboratory in air quotes for national integration, MSU incorporated Oquirre designs dun sa kanyang architecture. So pag tiningnan mo ngayon yung mga buildings sa Mindanao State, Torogan inspired siya. So may traditional motif yun sa mga facilities na ng university. Tapos yung logo nila, meron ding mga sari manok designs.
Even the Aga Khan Museum of Islamic Arts sa campus housed significant Oquirre artifact collections. And for the first time, non-Maranao students were systematically introduced to Islamic art traditions, marking a shift from purely community-based transmission to formal education systems.
Yeah, kasi yung MSU, it's a system So the main campus is in Marawi, but there are also other campuses like MSU IIT and other MSU campuses all over Mindanao. But I think the most fascinating chapter in the story of the Oquirre involves Abdul Mari Asia Imao during martial law. Itong si Imao ay ipinanganak sa Sulu noong 1936. He studied under the great Guillermo Tolentino and Napoleon Abueva sa UP, and he earned his Master of Fine Arts from the University of Kansas.
And during the darkest days of martial law, Imao deployed traditional Oquirre motifs as subtle political resistance. Di ba ang galing? So yung Ala series combined Islamic calligraphy with symbols like the crescent moon and 5-pointed star. So yung large-scale sculptures celebrated Muslim heroes. And in effect, it actually countered official narratives.
It's also important to note that in 2006, he became the first Muslim national artist. His work transformed Oquirre into what he called a tool for unification, progress, and brotherhood. He showed that tradition could speak to contemporary issues without losing authenticity. Galing,
Yeah, but then everything changed nung nangyari yung Marawi Siege, Noong May 23, 2017, a 5-month urban battle between the ISIS militants and the Philippine government. And the result was catastrophic kasi yung pinangyarihan ng battle ay mismong sa Marawi. Marawi, of course, is the biggest Islamic city in the Philippines. And within the 4 square kilometer main battle area, 95% of structures suffered heavy damage or complete collapse. And we're talking about thousands of buildings destroyed, and thousands more partially damaged.
So talagang the cultural losses because of that siege were irreplaceable. Historic Torogan houses with centuries-old Oquirre carvings were gone. 25 mosques in the most affected district were destroyed. And traditional craft workshops, manuscripts, artifacts, lahat yan nawala. So the Aga Khan Museum collection suffered heavy damage too. So in fact, like, torn Qurans found in mosque debris symbolized this devastation.
Pero syempre, hindi yan mabubura, no? Yung tradition ng Ukir. Task Force Bangon Marawi allocated more than 60 billion pesos for reconstruction. Details of Maranao Tourism Hub opened to showcase Maranao heritage. Maranao Collectibles employs 60 siege survivors as artisans, focusing on langkit weaving with Ukir patterns. So, patuloy na pinapractice yung tradisyong ito. So, today, Ukir faces both its greatest challenges and most exciting opportunities. The Marawi siege didn't just destroy buildings, no. It created a complex situation where Ukir became both a symbol of resilience and a tool of state rehabilitation efforts.
Yeah, so pag-usapan natin how Ukir weaving, particularly langkit weaving with Ukir patterns, became a source of strength, kumbaga, para dun sa mga survivors. Kasi halimbawa, yung mga kababaihan who virtually lost everything in the siege found purpose and healing through creating these textiles with the traditional designs. So kasi diba, that's a thing, right? Yung art therapy.
Yes.
Right? So, yung repetitive motions, tas yung focus na required talaga nun. Tapos yung alam mo, you feel like you're really connecting to your history and to your community. Parang talagang therapy din talaga.
Nung nasa Marawi ako, I was able to interview Sally Casamad, owner nung Maranao Collectibles. At nung panahon nga ng siege na-disrupt yung kanilang weaving efforts, at habang sila ay nasa temporary relocation shelters, she employed 60 siege survivors as artisans. At sabi nga niya na nakatulong yung weaving sa pag-process ng trauma. And one weaver even described that yung mga pattern daw na ginagawa nila is a way for them to show the world the beauty of Maranao and Muslim culture, na it's not just about destruction. In fact, I talked to another IDP na nag-start ng kanyang business using langkit, no? Para sa kanya na naiinis daw siya at na-frustrate na even like 4 years, 5 years after the siege, whenever he searches online about Marawi, it's always the images of destruction that he sees. So para sa kanya, they have a very beautiful culture and they want to represent it using their weaving langkit and the use of Ukir patterns and motifs. And
to add another layer, the government's rehabilitation efforts co-opted Ukir patterns for the design of the most affected area, or MAA. The new buildings, the streetscapes, the public spaces, all incorporate Ukir motifs. Na mapapaisip ka, on the surface, this seems like cultural sensitivity, right?
Yeah, kaya lang, hanggang ngayon, many years after the siege, MAA remains largely unused. So yung mga planong yan ng Ukir-adorned buildings stand empty. Tapos, thousands of displaced residents hindi pa rin makabalik sa kanilang mga dating tahanan. So, it became a symbol of unfulfilled promises rather than cultural revival.
Sobrang painful nung irony na yan, no? Kasi when I visited this MAA, no, ito yung parang showcase ng rebuilding. 60 billion pesos yung ginastos.
Wow.
Parang the government needs to show something for all the money spent. And you see this like beautiful buildings na maraming Ukir patterns na nasisira na lang, actually hindi nagagamit kasi hindi pa rin nga talaga nakakabalik yung mga tao. So, Ukir patterns used to mark really decorative objects, everyday life objects. It protected actual homes and communities. Now, it decorates what many Marawi residents call a kind of a ghost town. No? Literal, no? Kasi ang dami ring namatay doon na mga Maranao, na mga na-stuck noong siege. So, in a way, the state used the patterns, the sacred patterns of the Ukir for rehabilitation, but it didn't really result in the rehabilitation of the community.
Yun nga. Well, sabi nga nila, buildings without people aren't architecture. They're monuments to failure.
So ito it raises fundamental questions tungkol sa cultural preservation versus community needs na yes, mahalaga na i-maintain natin ang Okyr traditions in rebuilding Marawi or in the rebuilt Marawi. Pero para saan, 'di ba? What good are perfectly rendered patterns if the people who actually understand their meaning can't afford to live there?
So yeah, I think we are raising very important issues in our episode on the Okyr. Kasi nga it journeyed across time, from pre-Islamic Mindanao until the present. And now it's being used in an area that needs real attention kasi ang dami pa rin mga IDPs na ilang taon na natapos yung Marawi siege, andoon pa rin sila sa lugar kung saan dapat temporary relocation. So I think this episode really speaks to the fact na if we want to use these images, patterns, sacred patterns for rehabilitation, hindi lang siya dapat superficial, We use it with the sensitivity of knowing that culture should also be balanced with actual care for people at hopefully makabalik na sa most affected area. Mahalagang area kasi ito talaga ng Marawi. Yung mga maraming na-displaced na families at mga businessmen, businesswomen, entrepreneurs ng Marawi. That's all for our episode on the Okyr, the sacred patterns that have adorned Mindanao for over 1,400 years and continues to evolve despite enormous challenges.
In our next episode, we'll explore another profound Mindanao tradition that preserves memory in a different way. Yung clue ay it is written rather than carved, and it traces lineages rather than patterns, and actually connects families across centuries.
Ano kaya yan? Don't forget to follow us on social media accounts. Visit our websites at podcast.org for more information on our episodes and seasons.
Maraming salamat sa pakikinig. Until next time, this has been Podcast Conversations on Philippine History, Politics, and Society. As always, have a good day.